Been a long time. It's been a long time since we've seen you guys, and I feel like I have no idea what I'm doing anymore. But we're about to inject our ribs and our pork and our brisket tonight. It is around 5 p.m. We are doing this earlier than we normally would. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about what I do and what I'm trying to do when I'm injecting these ribs. So in the past, when we did competition videos, we kind of didn't really walk you through absolutely everything, and I want to start doing that. So I want to tell you why I'm injecting in certain spots, what I'm trying to achieve here. Let's get right into it. Now, just like with everything in barbecue, you guys absolutely want to make all your recipes and techniques your own, but I'll tell you that I usually try and do about 4 to 5 injections in between the bones, meat only, obviously. So if I don't get exactly 4 or 5 in there, that's completely okay, but that is my goal, 4 or 5 injections in between the bones and right there on the meat. So what I'm trying to do is get these pumped up as much as I possibly can with flavor. Obviously, one bite is all they're going to get out of these ribs, so I want to make it a really, really good bite. So ribs historically has been one of our better cooks. This is something that we've been doing for a while now on our ribs, and I think that it would help you guys out just a little bit, and I'll talk about it here right now. So now we got 4 or 5 pumps in between each rib, and you can see that they've plumped up, but they're not exactly where I want them. So now my goal is to focus on the top side of this rib. So when I've made barbecue in the past, I've noticed that a lot of people that are eating ribs actually take a bite up top that's closer to that cartilage. So I actually like to focus my injection there. So I'm going to put quite a bit of injection up top, and I'm going to keep pumping it in between. We're trying to hot dog these ribs. We're literally wanting the meat to look like little rows of hot dogs. That's what people call it. So let's go ahead and do that. So up top, I'm just going to literally not even focus on anything else but all the meat up top for right now. And if you guys can hear it in the background, Sabrina's actually consistently stirring this injection just so we can get as minimal as possible of injection. I don't even know how to call it, like blockage. Yeah, blockage in our injector. But again, I'm going to do at least 2 passes and 2 full tubes up top. And that's really where I start. So other than that, you guys are absolutely more than welcome to try something different. But I like to put a lot of injection up here because, like I've told you guys, or like I just said, I really think that a lot of people focus on this bite right up here. And, you know, judges like barbecue just the same as regular people, obviously. They are regular people. I don't know why I said it like that, but, you know, we just definitely are trying to give as good a barbecue as possible. So now we're going back in between the bones, and we're going to focus there. So I'm going to go around 3 or 4 pumps per. And again, this is a lot of injection, but you've got that one bite. And I think it's very important to get a really good rib one bite. My ribs are still taking injection here. I'm going to keep giving it. I most definitely don't want to overdo it, and that right there is where I'm going to stop. So I'm not sure if you guys saw it in the camera. I really hope you did. I did an injection, and I noticed that the injection actually squirted out the side over here. So if you look really closely at these ribs, they are completely packed full with moisture, and they're really, really plump. But that is exactly what I want because, like we've talked about already before, they're getting one bite out of this. This top side right here has a lot of injection in it as well. So if they do take that first bite, I think it's going to be a really, really good first bite, and hopefully we get a good score. So same exact thing on every single rack of ribs. Like I said, you guys will see I'm doing the same thing again. Nothing different from the last one. This is actually a smaller rack, but I do like the way it looks. So again, we're going to go up top here, and we're just going to continuously pump. It's going to be probably 1 to 2 tubes. So again, you can see the hot dog effect here. Like right here, that's a really, really nicely injected rib, and I'm trying to get every single rib exactly like this. Now, some people like to go in here and actually cut out this fat. I'm not worried about it at all because that's right where my cut line is. So I'm going to cut through that fat, and it's just going to be a little bit on both sides. I actually like the flavor that that adds to the ribs. As long as you render the fat, it's going to be good, in my opinion. Don't forget, all of this is my opinion. It might not work for you guys, but in the past, it's been okay for us for sure. All right, the next part of my process is to get some that base, which is our all-purpose rub, and go over top of the ribs with a medium coat. Then I'll flip it over and do the same exact thing to the backside. And these will actually go meat down in this liquid until the morning. All right, perfect. now that I'm injecting my money muscles, I kind of wanted to go through what I'm really looking for. So I swapped to a little bit of a longer needle, same gauge. I use the 16 gauge, and I'm going to be really mindful of where I'm injecting. So I'm going to make sure that I feel where this injection is going. You can kind of see it plumping up here. That's completely fine. And I want to make sure that I'm not injecting in between any fat pockets if I can help it. Now, it might happen every once in a while where you do get in between a little bit of fat there, which it's not going to kill you, but you definitely want to adjust at that point. So the last thing that I want is I don't want to be shooting in between the fat and then causing major separation in this money muscle. So what I want is I want this to be nice and together, especially in the end whenever I'm trying to cut these and get a really nice look on my money muscle. So we do try and get really nice and round slices out of our money muscle, and it makes it a lot harder if you have separation in the money muscle. So you can actually see that this one is really not exactly the way I want it. I got some separation here, but that's okay. I'm always going to keep my shears handy, and I'm just going to trim this up a little bit. Even if I trim a little bit of the piece of meat where there's injection in there now, it's fine for me. Like I said, I'm trying to make sure that these look really similar all the way through. So I have 3 money muscles here now that I've already injected 2. This third one is definitely my least favorite of the 3, but it's not too bad. And if I hold these side by side, you can see that they're at least similar in shape. They're not exact, but they're similar, and that's going to make for a really nice looking box. So on my pork butt, it's very simple. All I'm doing is injecting all over, and realistically, my goal is actually to not use this pulled. So it's not that I necessarily don't like pulled pork, it's that I'm using this as heat in my box. So I am going to inject it for flavor, but I really don't want to use it if I don't have to. I'm trying to use these money muscles on top of a bed of pork. So I am going to take this pork as serious as possible, and I'm going to try and cook it really well, but I'm not going to be upset if I end up not using it, because the goal really realistically is to not use it. So I'm looking for a really good fat cap here, and realistically all I'm trying to do is get right under this fat cap and get all of this bacon nice and injected. So now the last thing I'm going to do on my pork is I'm going to hit the top of it with that base, good layer, and on my monies I'm actually going to do it all the way around. Be mindful of where your top side of your money muscle is. That way you can always kind of have that presentation in mind. And then we're going to go right over top already with Southern Belle. So Southern Belle is going to add a little bit of that black pepper already. If you guys look, you can see the black pepper pop on that on that pork already, which is kind of what we're going for. We got a little black pepper from base, we got a little black pepper from Belle, and we're again going to season all over this bad boy. Why don't we do this on the ribs? Don't know. A lot of the stuff that I do doesn't make sense, but it makes sense to us, if that makes any sense. So just going to go Belle. And now if there is any injection left over, which you can see there's very little, if there's any injection left over, I'll just throw it in this pan and let everything swim in it. Alright, today we're going to be injecting a Snake River Farms brisket. We have a lot of really good marbling on this brisket, so obviously we're really hoping that we don't mess this up, because I do think it can turn out really good. So my goal here is literally to just inject as much as I can into this brisket without the injection coming out. So I just want to make sure that I'm injecting a lot. My favorite injection is LC's Play Bull. So if you guys have never tried it out, most definitely do it. That's all I'm going to say about my injection. But I do love Play Bull, and it's what I've been using exclusively basically since we started competing. And it is the same exact injection that we've used for, thankfully, a lot of really good calls. So if you guys are interested in trying it out, he's not paying me to say this. I genuinely like the products, and my goal with these competition videos is most definitely to share more information with you guys, so you guys can hopefully go out and get some really good walks at these contests. So already I've got 2 tubes, and I have only moved about 1.5 inches up the brisket, just to kind of give you an idea of how much I like to inject here. So 2 tubes, we'll count them out today so you guys can kind of know what I put into this brisket. That's 3, 4. I'm about halfway up the brisket now. So if we keep going at this pace, we're at least going to put 8 in here. 6, 7, that's 8. And I can still go more here, so we're going to keep going. So 8 is good. At this point, I've fully injected all of this brisket. So now I'm just going to start focusing on where I think my slices are going to come from. So if you guys look at this portion right here of the brisket, it is more marbled right here than it is on this side. This side was where the flat was, and the flat was only. This right here had a little bit of point with it as well. So we're just going to keep going on this side. So basically this half of the brisket, now I'm going to focus everything on. Well, not necessarily everything, but I'm going to focus more on, because I do believe that this is where my slices are going to come from. Now, that being said, you obviously also don't want to focus so much on one side that you have a lopsided brisket. So I'll come back over here and I'll hit this a little bit just so we have a nice and uniform brisket for sure. So far that's 10. So now I'm injecting, and I can kind of see some of my liquids coming back out right there. Like if you see that, hopefully you guys can see that in the camera. I'm injecting, and you see how the liquid's coming back out. I'm good. I'm done. For me, that's a telltale sign that this thing is fully injected, and I have lots of liquid inside there. There is phosphates in play, bulls, so we're going to have some moisture retention. We're going to have really, really good flavor. Of course, I have a little bit of beef broth that I'm injecting into this, and overall, I just have a really good feeling about it. Well, not necessarily a good feeling, but I'm happy with the way things are going so far. Now with my brisket point, you guys can see this thing is so ridiculously marbled. And check that out. It's ridiculously marbled. I do want to inject this, but I don't want to over inject this. So I am going to do a lot less injection in this than you would see me put into my flat. So that's 1 tube. 2 tubes. 3 tubes is all I'm going to do. I have a really, really nice point here, and that's a lot of fat. That's a lot of marbling, and this is already going to be super duper flavorful, but that's all we need here, and we're all good. Last but not least, just like every other protein that we've done today, I'm going to hit the top of the brisket flat only with that base. Good coating. And I'm not going to do that to the point because I don't want this to turn into a salt bomb. That's the last thing I want. I want them to be really nice and tender and flavorful, but I don't want them to be too salty. So it's a little bit of a different flavor profile. If that makes any sense, it's the same, but it's just a tad bit of difference. Because if they do go for that burnt end, I definitely want them to get a different flavor than they would if they grabbed it from the slice. All right, good morning. It is almost 5 a.m. I woke up just a few minutes early, and now I'm going to season my brisket. Sorry if I sound like I just woke up, because I literally did. But we've already put that base on this brisket, so now it's morning time. I'm putting Southern Belle over top of that. So the reason that I use this little shaker for Southern Belle is because we actually grind Southern Belle for competition. We put it in a coffee grinder, and we put about 3 or 4 pulses on it, and that gives us a perfect grind, and we feel like it gives us a better, more even application when it comes to competition barbecue. It's not something that we do at the house or when we're cooking steaks or anything like that, but we have found that we have a little bit better success when it comes to competition barbecue, and we grind it. So right after Southern Belle, I'm going to go with 16 mesh black pepper, and this is going to give us that brisket pop that we're looking for, that black pepper pop that we're looking for. I think every brisket needs to have black pepper on it. That's just a personal thing, and I definitely think that it gives it a great bark, and it's going to have that look and that feel and that taste that everybody's looking for in brisket. You definitely don't want to do anything that's going to make this not feel like a brisket, so that's exactly why I like to do that black pepper. Again, it feels still very traditional to me, and it's still going to have a great flavor, and you know, it's just something that we've been doing for a long time. Over top of that, we're going to go with trifecta. In the past, I was doing Southern Hospitality, but we've transferred over to trifecta. We think it's a very, very good blend, and we think that it has a smooth flavor that can go on any protein. So that's why we've gone to trifecta instead of Southern Hospitality. You're still going to have great success. We've had a lot of great success with Southern Hospitality, so don't feel like if you don't use Trifecta, you're going to be in a bad spot. But if you do have Trifecta, try it out. See what you think when it comes to your brisket. I'll move this over a little bit. And yeah, this point right here is kind of insane, to be honest. I'm really hoping that we cook this well because it is super fat. Super fat. So what I'm going to do is, it's a little bit different on the point. We talked about it last night. We talked about it earlier in the video. I don't want these to be salty. So I'm going to do this. We're going to go over top with that base. That's our all-purpose blend. And then on top of that, we're going to go with Trifecta. And we're going to do nothing else with this. We're not going to put any black pepper. We're not going to put any Southern Belle. This is going to give it a really, really good, smooth flavor. And I can manipulate this in the end. I can make it sweeter if I want. I can make it a little saltier if I want with my finishing powders, which we'll talk about later. So I really just want these to be smooth. I want them to have a really, really nice, good look to them. And this is going to give it. So we go with that base and Trifecta on the burnt ends only. And I'm not even going to season the bottom. So we'll show you why we don't season the bottom after a while, but we're not going to do it today. Okay, we're right at 530. You can see we're right at 300 degrees. I have not even adjusted my stack on my Outlaw yet. I don't think you guys can see that. I'm by myself this morning, so it's a little difficult. I'm going to pull out this microwave shelf here. We're going to put our brisket right on top. You hear that sizzle. Hopefully you guys hear that sizzle. And we're going to go straight in on this microwave shelf on the Outlaw. So then I'm going to go here with my burned ends, and we're going to go right below it. So the reason I want to start on this microwave shelf here is because I'm used to cooking hot and fast on a drum, and I definitely want to kind of keep that timeline if I can. So the reason that I want to have my brisket on my microwave shelf is because I want to cook it hot and fast, at least as close as I can to the timeline that I would if I was on a drum. So I just want to make sure that I'm hitting timelines today. I'm throwing the brisket up there. We're going to rotate it 30 minutes, and then we might bring it down. We'll see exactly how this is going to cook. This is the first competition that I'm cooking with the Outlaw. I'm currently alone, but Sabrina should be here soon. So we're just going to run it like this. We're going to watch over the brisket. It's a lot different than cooking it on a drum, but we're going to be just fine. We have our flavor profiles. We're going to stick to them, and I know that it's going to turn out good on this brisket. We're really worried about tenderness. We're worried about tenderness on the drum, on an offset, on a pellet grill, anything. You have to nail your tenderness. As long as we do that, I think we're going to be just fine. Okay, brisket's been on for 30 minutes. Right now it is right at 6 a.m. So we're going to go ahead and season up our pork. And we're going to go over top. So this already has that base and Southern Belle. And we're going to go over top with Trifecta. So the reason we call this Trifecta is because we look at it as a multi-purpose barbecue blend. Barbecue product. We don't necessarily want to call it a seasoning, and that's because I actually put this in the same injection that went into the ribs and the pork. I also put this in our chicken brine. We use it for multi-purposes, so that's why we call it Trifecta. So if you guys are ever interested in changing things up and you want something a little bit different on your pork, a little bit different on your chicken, on your ribs, whatever, this is a really, really good product that goes into, you know, different things. So it can go in your brine, it can go into your injection. Now, if you are going to use it in your injection, you do want to make sure that you are, give me 1 second, you do want to make sure that you're straining it, because if not, you're going to have some issues with the peppers and the seasonings in there. But overall, I mean, this is a really good product, and we're using it a lot lately. You can use it on beef. You guys see that I put it on the brisket earlier. You can use it on beef. Obviously, I'm putting it on pork right now. and you guys can also throw it on your ribs, chicken, whatever. So just something to take note of. Like I said, I'm going to try and be really, really open with you guys, especially since we're doing less of these videos. I'm going to try and remain really, really open and just try and help everybody out as much as we can. That's definitely the goal. So we got the pork seasoned up nice here. We are going to let this hang out for a little bit. This is not going to go on the smoker quite yet, but we're going to let this hang out. I'm also going to do the same exact thing to my ribs. So in the past, I was obviously using Southern Hospitality. If you guys enjoy Southern Hospitality, if you're hitting with Southern Hospitality, I don't think I would make any changes if I was you. But the reason that we're making changes and doing stuff differently is because these are our products. And we definitely are trying to prove that they can all hit no matter what. They all have really, really good flavor. They all have really, really good color. And our goal is to show you guys that you can do this with just our products. Now, honestly, I was really, really close to doing a trifecta only competition this weekend. And when I say trifecta only, I literally mean I wasn't going to use that base. I wasn't going to use Southern Belle. I wasn't going to use anything else but trifecta. And I was really, really close to doing it. But I do want to give ourselves the best opportunity to win this. And I think that we have, I don't even want to say a better chance, but I don't want to not do well and then think back and, oh, I shouldn't have done trifecta only. I should have thrown Belle. I should have this or should have that. But if you guys are interested, obviously let me know. If we get enough traction, we can definitely do a trifecta only barbecue competition. And I think that it could hit. I really, really, truly do with everything in me. I think the trifecta is a great, great, great blend. It goes on everything and it tastes amazing. So I really think that we would have an opportunity here even if we ran trifecta only. But for the mental aspect, we wanted to come out here. You know, we have First Class here who's on an absolute tear. We have Chicken Fried Barbecue here who's just one of the best in the country. And we want to give ourselves a good opportunity here. So backside gets that base overnight, Southern Belle on top, trifecta on the last layer. We're going to flip it over. And we're going to go back over top with Southern Belle here. And then on top of Southern Belle, we're going to do a really, really light layer of 16 mesh black pepper. And I try and be really, really mindful of how much I'm putting here. So on the brisket, obviously, I kind of go to town. On these ribs, I don't necessarily want to go to town. I don't want them to be too peppery, but I do want them to have a little bit of a black pepper look and bite there. So that right there is just about good to me. You guys might notice, you might not, but I do not over-season. I try not to over-season. And the reason is because I do think that these blends that we have here, they have a lot of really, really good color and flavor. But I do also want a little bit of that natural look on this pork, at least as best as I possibly can. So I'm not one to cake seasonings on. Coming from somebody who sells seasonings, that might sound a little bit odd to you guys, but I'm really just not one to cake seasonings on. You know, we've cooked a lot, and I've done a lot of my own, I don't want to say research, but we've done a lot of development at the house with seasonings, and I just find that everything tastes a lot better, or not better, but I have better results whenever we just have a nice light layer, medium layer of seasoning. So I don't go too heavy on anything, and this is exactly the way I like to season. So I've got my pork, I've got my ribs here, I've got my full butt, and we're just going to let this hang out until 7 o'clock, 6:30. I don't even know what my timeline is with this offset yet, but probably a little bit sooner rather than later, and we'll throw this on here in just a little bit. Alright, it is right at 7 a.m. and now it's time to put these ribs in the pit. So we're going to go ahead and open this up. Try and put them as straight as possible. Got one more rack here. All right, go ahead and shut it down. Also got my pork butt here. We'll go ahead and put on. Same thing. At this point in the morning, it's time to start wrapping. We wrap the flat and the point with beef broth and some other ingredients, and we're going to insert a probe just so we can know when to start checking for doneness. Now it's time to focus on the money muscles, and we're not pulling these off until we get the color we want. As usual, we're going to wrap these up with liquids, sauce, butter, and sugar in the raw, and once the pork looks the way we want it, we're also going to wrap that the same exact way. Ribs are ready to be wrapped at the same exact time, so now it's time for us to be efficient. The ribs are going to get wrapped in foil, meat side up every single time, butter, sauce, sugar in the raw, and 2/3 cups of liquid. After chicken is injected, we lay it on a bed of onions and season it up with trifecta. "10 a.m., time to put some chickens on the drum. We're just doing half chickens today, no wings, nothing else, just 2 half chickens. And right after putting the chicken on at 10 a.m., we're also going to check our ribs just to see where they're at. Not quite where I want them, but they're most definitely getting nice and soft. You can see that they're already around 210. But I've told you guys before that I'm not too worried about the number. I'm looking more for a feel, and you can kind of see there's a little resistance right there if you look really closely at the meat. So these are not quite exactly where I want them, but they're looking really good. You guys might be able to see in the camera the color looks awesome, so I'm really happy with that. But we're going to throw these back on and let them keep cooking. Just because that was a bigger rack, I am going to go ahead and check on one of my smaller ones here. Again, looks really nice, but not quite where I want it on the tenderness. I'm just going to keep going. Like I said, I know that number's high. That's completely fine with me. I need to make sure that I'm rendering fat, and that doesn't feel exactly the way I want it. So we're going to keep going past this 210 mark. These ribs are going to be just fine. They're not going to dry out or anything like that, but we want to keep going. All right. Time to check brisket. We're going to go ahead and move everything over a little bit. Yank our brisket out. And we're going to check it right now. So it's reading 210. Doesn't necessarily mean it's exactly where we want it, but it is reading 210. Now, nope. I can tell you already that's nowhere near where we want it. It's tender, but it's not as tender as I want. So you guys can see right now 210 is confirmed, but this is not where we want it. Now, I'll also tell you this much. Earlier when Sabrina wasn't here, we actually had a little mishap. So this is the first time I'm using this offset smoker, and I actually got a little bit of crispiness on the edges, but I went ahead and trimmed it off, not even worried about it. You can see it's nice and tender, but it's not where I want it. Woo! So we're going to keep going on this brisket. We'll check it every 30 or so minutes. We'll also go ahead and check our burn ends. They're tender as well, but not where I want them. So we're going to keep going with these as well. So right now I believe it's, what time is it, around 10:15 or so? It's around 10:15 or so. We still got plenty of time. We don't want to rush this process. The brisket and everything is looking really nice and feeling good, but we want to keep going here. And just because we're in here, we might as well check the pork as well. Yeah, pork's also not where we want it. Tender, but not tender enough. We're going for extra tender here for sure. Time to check the money muscles. They're reading, ooh, got a blowout bad right there. It's not what I like to see. It actually fell over, you see that? I'm not exactly ecstatic with the way the pork looks so far, if I'm being completely honest with you guys, but I also know that there's ways to fix these things, so we can go ahead and put it back in. You see that little blowout? I mean, it's obviously not what I want to see, but tenderness not where I want it though. So we're gonna keep going. I'll say I'm gonna take this probe out. We'll check this in another 30 or so minutes. It's been 30 minutes since we checked our ribs. The last time we checked them, they were actually really close to being done. So we do want to check them again. And I can see some really good pull back here. Color on them is immaculate and they're getting closer, but I'm gonna verify and triple check with my wife who's behind the camera. Let me swap with her. And we both agree that they still have a little bit of time to go. So we do this every single competition. I always check. You notice last time I didn't even give her the probe at all because I knew there was nowhere near them being done. But this time they're a lot closer. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna check every single rack. If any are done, we'll take them off. But that first one for sure was not there. This rack looks really good too. Nope. I can feel that one. Oh, right there feels really good, but here's a little tight. We definitely want to keep going on this one as well. All right, we're gonna go ahead and check brisket again. It's been a little bit, but we want to see where it's at. Feels pretty good. It could probably go just a little bit more, but it feels pretty good. Brisket's feeling pretty good, but we're gonna go another 30 minutes. I'm actually gonna take this probe out. I don't really care about temp anymore at all. That's just a guideline. So right now it's probing at around 212 degrees, but again, doesn't matter to me. It's all good. Just gonna go ahead and throw it back in. Also gonna check on burnt ends. Another way that I'll kind of tell if they're done or not is if they start to split a little bit, they're really, really close. So this feels good, but I still feel like this also could go just a little bit more. So we're gonna keep this in there. We'll go another 30 minutes along with the flat and we'll check it together. All right, we're gonna check ribs, which we hope for the last time. We've checked them already, I think twice. They're doing pretty good, but wanna make sure they're nice and tender. I think those are done. All right, both racks are feeling really good. We're gonna take them off. We're gonna put them in the Cambro. We're gonna rest them until it's time to get them prepped for the box. The chicken halves are about 5 degrees away from being done, so we're gonna pull them off, let them rest for around 10 minutes, sauce them, and then put them back onto the drum until the sauce sets. Then, of course, it's time to box. Rib turn-in is up next. We're going to start by slicing each rack of ribs, and we definitely want to taste everything just to make sure that we're putting in the best possible product. We're going to pull the best 5 ribs from each rack, dunk them in sauce, and then back onto the smoker until the sauce is set. Pro tip, throw some pellets in your drum. You're going to get a little bit extra smoke and it's going to catch onto that wet sauce. All right, ribs just came off. With ribs in, we start processing our pulled pork. We're going to separate the bacon, tubes, and every other piece that we might want in our box. We do want to make sure to take off as much fat as possible, and then we're going to toss it in the au jus, wrap that in foil, and then place it back on the smoker to keep it nice and hot. Once it gets closer to turn in, we're going to start slicing our monies, tasting each one of them before we decide which one's going to go into the box. Yep, I think I'm going to like the texture on that. Yep, try that. We're going to dunk the monies in sauce before we place them into the box. We try treating these exactly the same way we do our ribs. This week, we decided to go with 2 rows of money mussels and 1 row of pulled because we were really happy with the way that the pulled pork tastes. So if you guys can't see, we're obviously trying to concentrate pretty good here, but I got this new little, it's like a mesh spoon, and I want to use this to make sure that I get a dunk on my money mussel because I'm trying to finish it exactly the same exact way that we finish our ribs. So I think it's pretty cool. Just kind of, I told Sabrina last time after our last competition that I wanted something, and this was kind of what we came up with. So we thought about it and said, hey, this is a good idea. Brisket finished after chicken was turned in and has been resting in the Cambro ever since. To get ready, we're going to place the flat back on the smoker, put some sauce on, and let it set. Meanwhile, we're going to start cutting up our burnt ends, checking for taste and tenderness before deciding if we actually want to put them into the box. Next, we're going to sauce them up and place them back on the smoker to also stay warm. With 20 minutes until turn-in, we're going to start slicing up our brisket. We're instantly going to start putting au jus all over our brisket slice, and it's going to go straight into the box. Every single meat has been turned in to the judges. Now it's time to go to awards and see what they thought. If we hit this first place brisket, we're going to GameStop tonight. But we got to get this next one.
First place brisket.
Let's go. Let's go, son.
North Coast Smoke.